So for today's character analysis, we'll be talking about tsunderes. But what is a tsundere? Let me look it up. Alright, here we go. Tsundere is a Japanese term for a character development process that depicts a character with a personality who is initially cold, harsh, and hot-headed before gradually showing a warmer, friendlier side over time. Alright. The word is derived from... Alright, I don't really know what happened there. Why don't we step outside for a little bit, huh? Okay, we're not really talking about that. But, did you know, Natsuki's insecurities being the fuel to her tsundere archetype and boastful attempts at superiority as she attempts to get approval from others without being laughed or mocked at is a common symptom of victims of child abuse? No? Alright, let's get into it. Let's go back. Hey, you look nice today. I'm Juice, and today we're going to be talking about the bundle of cuteness that is Natsuki. And yes, I know she doesn't like it when we call her cute, and that's because, well, reasons we'll get into later. But first, if you think Natsuki is best girl, then give this video a like. And boop that subscribe button too. Seriously, I don't understand why so many people don't like her. She's super underrated. I get that she's abrasive and all, but once she warms up to you, you start to see the real meaning of what she's saying. Because just like all of these girls, and the characters that I analyze in this channel, there's more to her than you think. It's like how her poems work, which are cute on the outside but typically have a deeper meaning. All we have to do is look beyond the surface to get that sweet feeling. Stop it. It's super evident in her poems too, with just a little digging. I really like Amy Likes Spiders. I think it's my favorite poem in the game, actually. Don't hold me to that. On the surface, it looks like this poem is about Amy and how Nat really doesn't like her because, well, Natsuki just doesn't like spiders. Some may even mistake this for her talking about Yuri during the recent arguments in the clubroom between the two. I've seen plenty of people say that during their playthroughs. But no, Natsuki got her idea down perfectly. She doesn't need a bunch of complex words to ensure the meaning comes across. Sorry, Yuri, we'll get to you. No, see, Natsuki likes to use simpler language to convey more complicated subjects that pull at your heartstrings. It's something that's really important to her. What this poem is actually about is how a person can be so harshly judged over a single thing. In this case, liking spiders. In someone else's case, maybe it's playing dating simulators. But in her Cupcake Queen's case, it's reading manga. She's so heavily judged for her interest that the literature club is the only place she feels comfy reading it. But that wasn't always the case. In fact, when she first joined the club, Monica was pretty condescending when it came to asking her about her love for manga. She asked if there were any other types of literature she liked, and even discounted manga entirely, asking if she had considered joining the anime club instead. Because of that, Natsuki didn't even share her love of poetry. This has caused her to more strongly defend those things she enjoys, being abrasive and snappy at those who discount her immediately. For each defensive behavior she has, though, there's a deep-rooted explanation for it, either from something she has experienced or still is experiencing in her life. On that note, would you like to read a special poem? This is Things I Like About Papa, one of the many special poems you can get by chance in your playthrough of DDLC. It's written from Natsuki's perspective. It gives us a glimpse into Natsuki's world and what she could be dealing with at home. Take the time you need to read this, and pause if you need to, as I will be referencing it as we continue through her story. I'm going to go through some of the biggest examples of these behaviors and then talk about why they might be happening. Right off the bat, when Natsuki joins the club and introduces herself, Sayori excitedly says that she'll be happy to read something simpler when Natsuki mentions her manga because of all the complex fantasy she's been reading lately. But Natsuki gets super defensive about it, saying that manga isn't simple and that she just doesn't understand the nuance. Almost like she's used to her interests being disrespected and needs to put up a tough exterior because of it. As referenced in the poem, her father disrespects her belongings and interests to the point where she doesn't even feel comfortable leaving her manga at home. It's referenced right in the main game when you're reading with her and she says she doesn't know what her dad would do if he found this. Even worse in Act 2 when she says that her dad would physically abuse her if he did. This disrespectful behavior is also shown with her friends outside of the clubroom, who constantly tease her and make her insecure about her interests. At first, she pretends to be okay with it because it's just how things are. After all, who knows how long her family and friends have been treating her like this? But thankfully, later in the side story titled Self-Love, God, I love this side story, by the way. The waterworks were real when I was playing it. Natsuki discovers that allowing that behavior is against everything she stands for, and realizes what true friendship and respect look like. To return back to the start of the club, though, after Monika apologizes, she catches up with Natsuki and they go to the music room. Monika tells Natsuki that her feelings are valid and deserve to be heard and respected, but Natsuki hesitates before saying, "It's just really hard to feel that way sometimes. You know, like, I really shouldn't care about what other people think in the first place. But when you're just criticized by everyone around you for being a certain way, it can get really hard to just brush it off. And it makes me start to feel like I'm the problem. Like I'm not doing enough to please everyone else. Am I being too entitled if I just want people to like me without me having to hide a bunch of stuff about myself? I don't think I am. I just wish people would appreciate me for who I am." Again, just how long has she been fighting against that, refusing to change for others? And why exactly? Monika tells her that she wishes she could be just as strong as she was, and that she's so honest with herself. But Natsuki can't seem to fathom that she inspired Monika just by being herself. It's sad, but when you live in a difficult household, you perceive yourself as small as a coping mechanism. And just the idea that you, yourself, impacting someone positively instead of negatively is really hard to get yourself to believe because you're so used to blaming yourself for the behavior you normally have to put up with. In the side story Reflection, Sayori and Natsuki have a talk about feelings, and at the end of the conversation, we get a message from the narrator themselves speaking on the subject, and I wanted to include it. Despite Sayori's kind reassurance, a complicated mixture of pain and sadness seemed to fill her, as though flowing from a wound inside her. Was it a result of her vulnerability? No. It was as though she was inflicted a wound after becoming vulnerable. It was as though she began to rediscover an old wound, one that cannot simply be bandaged and left alone any longer. I wonder what that old wound could be. But to get back to the self-love story that I brought up earlier, we can see that Natsuki slowly and indirectly starts warming up to Yuri after a little fight she had with her in the story before about respecting interests. Honestly, I could write a whole video about the comparisons between Yuri and Natsuki because of how much they reflect off each other. Let me know if you want that. But anyway, there are many examples we can use here. For one, she mentions that it's a good thing she has thick skin, which speaks for itself. A little later, Yuri buys an extra bottle of iced tea for Natsuki because she assumed she would show up at lunch again after doing it for a couple days. Instead of saying thank you, she says, "But you didn't know I was coming here today. What if I didn't show up?" Forcing Yuri to give some sort of awkward explanation and making her a bit insecure about the decision to the point where she thought it was stupid. But then Natsuki realizes how her words affected Yuri and says that it wasn't stupid. "What I mean to say is thank you, and that it's a really nice gesture." Yuri says it's okay if she doesn't feel that way, but then Natsuki puts her hands on her hips and says she does. It was the other stuff that she didn't mean. You can see she starts to get sad by her facial expressions, and even says to please believe her. Talking about her feelings is extremely difficult for her. This is just another example of her putting up her walls because she's used to her feelings being undermined. She needs to be shown love before she can show it back. This leads back to her father not showing her that love and respect. Not to mention that if she speaks her true feelings, she's at risk of being abused, and wouldn't know how to communicate them because she's ignored so much. It's conditioning. When they were talking about the differences between Natsuki's friends and her friends in the club, Yuri brings up Sayori and says that unlike them, she's a nice person who cares about her feelings. Natsuki gets super defensive over it, but Yuri makes sure to say that she just doesn't like people who want to hurt her. You can tell that Natsuki felt apprehensive about answering. She claims they don't want to hurt her, and that they just tease each other about stupid things, and that that's fun. But when Yuri asks if she actually likes that, Natsuki says not to worry about her, and that it's not worth it. People like Natsuki are often vulnerable to friend groups like this. Friendship for friendship's sake, even if you don't necessarily like the people you're friends with. Something she again mentions is that speaking her feelings doesn't come naturally. "It's really hard for me. It doesn't come naturally at all. It's so weird because I always thought of myself as someone who can just say whatever's on my mind. But I feel like that only works when I'm annoyed or upset or I want to say something mean. Why am I like that?" You can see she starts to get a little upset with herself while saying this. She says it herself best here, and I think this part of the story really helps prove my points. I always told myself that I don't rely on the approval of others to be happy, and I still feel that way, but I'm spending time with people who put me down whenever I don't have their approval. That's probably what's making me feel so confused, because I'm threatened out of the things that should make me happy. So no matter what, it's like I have to be unhappy to be happy. It's making my head hurt. And then Yuri says, that must make it really difficult to feel comfortable with yourself, being made to feel like you're wrong just for being the person you are. Natsuki continues, it really goes against everything I believe in, doesn't it? It goes against the kind of person I want to be. I'm fed up with it. I'm fed up with a lot of things. I know it's best for me, but I keep convincing myself out of it. It's so much easier to be comfortably happy than it is to do something so scary. This is what it's like to be in a toxic relationship. It's so spot on. She's perfectly describing the cycle of abuse that's going on here. First, being neglected by her father to the point where she's okay with being friends with people who make fun of her, and then showing how hard it can be to break free of that. Alright, let's move on to the main game now. But before we do, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. You really have to beat the crap out of it. You wouldn't want to upset Natsuki, would you? Good, because she'd kick your ass anyway. Moving on, to start off, when Natsuki shows her manga to the protagonist, she says, if you're gonna judge, you can go do it through the glass on that door. The protagonist resists, saying that he didn't even do anything, but she says that it was the tone of his voice. This shows how child abuse victims have learned to be hyper aware of subtle mannerisms. This is to protect them from future abusive episodes. Additionally, she says, consider this a lesson straight from the literature club. Don't judge a book by its cover. When MC says, maybe I underestimated you, Natsuki first laughs and smiles triumphantly, but then says, hey wait, and then gets a bit frustrated. But then MC says, I just meant that I haven't seen you at your full power. She also gets defensive when MC asks if the manga Parfait Girls has a lot of baking in it, and says it's just a coincidence. She would never get into anything just because it's in a manga. She feels bad for anyone who's that impressionable. When MC asks if Natsuki is bored just watching him read her manga, she says that she doesn't mind. He gets it. It can be really nice to get your friends into a series you like, but Natsuki gets upset at this because she doesn't have any friends to share her manga with. This is the first time. She says not to rub it in. All of her friends try to move her past manga and say that it's just for kids. It makes me want to punch them in the face, she says. Whoa, Natsuki, showing some real violent tendencies there. She even says she'll kill MC if he bends the manga. Damn, girl, relax. Though it does make sense considering she takes extra care of her belongings. She's used to them being disrespected by her father. Shortly after, when Monika calls out that it's time to read poems and the two are sitting awfully close to each other and must be comfy, Natsuki slides a whole 12 inches away from us, showing that she really isn't cool with physical contact, unless she's the one initiating. This happens when Sayori hugs her from behind too, and it's likely because it's something that scares her due to past experiences, and she wants to be the one who has control in those situations, but can't deny that she wants to feel comfortable and loved. This is also proven by her many roughhousing tendencies, like when she elbows you in the stomach after a funny exchange on day 3 of the Sayori route, or the entire time she's over your house on Sunday to bake cupcakes for the festival. Once Natsuki reads MC's poem in the Natsuki route, she says that she doesn't even want to give critique anymore, being rather dismissive about it. She says she would be more comfortable sharing her poem if his was really bad. This being after he says that her having trouble sharing poems is what he had in mind when writing it. She has a lot of trouble just saying that she liked it. In his head, he thinks that Natsuki must really hate him or something, but in reality, it's not like that at all. Natsuki just has a really hard time expressing her feelings, as we established earlier. When Natsuki shows the poem Eagles Can Fly, she says, see, I knew you weren't gonna like it, before he even says anything. When he says he does like it, she can't believe it. What? Just be honest. Why are you so convinced that I wouldn't like it? Well, because everyone in school thinks that writing has to be all sophisticated and stuff, so people don't even take my writing seriously. I guess more went into it than I realized, says MC after Natsuki explained her writing style. That's what it means to be a pro. I'm glad you learned something. Didn't expect that from the youngest one here, did you? They're all 18, by the way. She really just has to be the strongest because of that defense mechanism. This is just another example of her having to prove herself despite her age and size. The following day, Natsuki becomes extremely upset when she can't get a crease out of her manga, and actually begins to cry. This shows just how much she cares about her own belongings. They got damaged in the one place she thought they were safe from getting messed with by her father and talked about by her friends. She also says that she's having a really bad day today, and that could be because of her friends and also because of her abusive father. This all culminates in her putting up a front and trying her best when in reality, she could break down at any moment. She's constantly on edge. Imagine most other aspects of your life being difficult and then something like this goes wrong in the one place you feel comfortable. No matter how small that thing may seem to you, it's a deep blow that could definitely break someone down in the moment. You never know just how important something is to someone else. When MC asks if she wants to talk about it, she just shakes her head and says that every day is so hard. She just wants to come to the club, where she feels safe. When MC helps pick up the manga, Natsuki through a choked voice says, You're really nice to me. Well, I'm just treating you like a friend, you know? This obviously hits extra hard when you realize how mean her friends are to her, that she might not even know what true friendship even is. When they go to exchange poems, Natsuki has a tough time saying it, but finally admits that you did a great job. Yeah, sure you did. When MC asks what the problem is with him trying to impress her, her face freezes. And then she rushes to the bathroom embarrassed, but clearly happy and doesn't know how to show it. Natsuki then comes back to the classroom, getting upset that Monika reads the poem, saying that it wasn't for her, and that she's gonna keep it. Honestly, this is super cute, but also really hard to watch. That being because it's like Natsuki is clinging onto any semblance of love and respect that she gets. It's a genuinely cute moment, sure, but it's double-sided. But when they show poems on the following day, Natsuki wants to see MC's poem. She's super enthusiastic about it. She admits she likes his writing, and he says that he's surprised and that she had trouble admitting it before. He asks whether or not she's confident in her writing, and well, that question isn't as easy as pie for Natsuki to answer now, is it? Eh? What are you talking about? My writing is obviously the best, right? Right? It took a while for him to figure it out, but Natsuki acts so arrogant because she's trying to make up for her own insecurities. If she acts like she's the best, then other people might think it too. This is what she says. Please, just tell me you like my poems. I don't care if you hate them. Just please tell me I'm the best. I just really need to hear that from someone. I know I sound stupid. There's a reason I never shared my poems before this. Because no one ever takes me seriously. What's the point in sharing my poems if people just laugh and say, That's so cute, just like you, Natsuki? Sometimes I don't want to be cute, but nobody understands that. I try really hard when I write. The style doesn't matter. The emotions are there. Why can't anyone see that? The style doesn't matter. The emotions are there. Why can't anyone see that? Wow. Talk about a double meaning. And following this, Natsuki shares her latest poem with us, titled Because You. My heart. My heart. I adore this poem. Thank you, Natsuki. Ah, right the way into your heart. Thanks, Monika. What the? Well, moving on. Let's get into Act 2 of DDLC, where everything changes. There are a few important details the game lays out for us here, so we're gonna have to cover them. When you exchange poems on one of the days, she noticed that you've been spending quite a lot of time with Yuri recently, because the game is forcing you on the Yuri path due to her obsessiveness. She says not to worry about it though. She was taught not to expect anything from anybody. Jeez, that stings. Because her dad was never around, obviously. I can only imagine the amount of things that he's promised her that fell through later. He was waiting for you to read manga with her and just couldn't admit it. Her inner thoughts come out, saying that it was the only thing she was looking forward to today, and gets insecure about what she means to you. She also even says that the club is the only place she feels safe this time. Straight up just says it. And when Monika is talking about ways to recruit members, she says that she just wanted a club where she can hang out with a few friends. It's likely because it's the only place where she can be somewhat open about her feelings and have real friends, even if things have soured recently. It just shows how much she's willing to put up with. There's even a point where Natsuki collapses onto you when reading manga together because she's so tired from being malnourished. Things go back to normal when Monika gives her a protein bar. Damn, Monika, why don't you do that for me? I'm trying to look like Buff Suki over here. She's my biggest inspiration. Though with the knowledge of the game script, she says her dad doesn't give her lunch money sometimes, and doesn't keep a lot of food in the house. So Monika keeps a protein bar for her just in case. That's why it bothers her so much when Yuri says to go look for coins under the vending machine, which is really, really messed up. Despite that, and despite all of this, the judgment from her peers, the physical and mental abuse from her father, and the dismissive attitude shown to her by other characters in the game, she's still standing, and she's standing strong. Natsuki gets up every day and fights through it, struggling to be herself, but over time learning to treat herself with the love and respect she deserves. Thanks to her friends and the safety provided by the literature club, she slowly comes to understand that maybe she doesn't always have to fight. It's a struggle to get there, but anyone can do it when shown enough love and care. The next time you meet someone who's a little abrasive, take the time to reflect on why that might be. It never hurts to have some compassion and look beyond the surface. After all, if there's one thing Natsuki teaches us in DDLC, it's this: never judge a book by its cover. Thank you so much for watching. If If you enjoyed this Natsuki video, then maybe you'll like the Sayori analysis that I did already. Thank you to my patrons for all the support. Speaking of which, if you want to see who the next video is on or see it early, then make sure you join the Patreon. There are even some hints to who the video will be on in this very video, just like always. Thank you to my Discord community for providing this awesome art you see of Natsuki here. And as always, thank you to Team Salvato and Serenity Forge for creating these stories and characters in the first place. Until next time, have an amazing day.